Your TSP could be your biggest financial asset, but without tax strategy, it could also be your biggest liability. In this video, we're going to talk about key strategies that can minimize taxes on your TSP. So let's get into it. The next thing we're going to talk about is this is one of my favorites out there, traditional TSP, right? It's not tax-free. Most people do come to us, especially when we do this retirement workshop. They come to me, they're super excited with what you have done with their TSP, right? And then power to them. They'll come in, probably give me their TSP statement. They probably have over $1 million in their TSP statement. I can see the excitement in their face. They love that they've done well. But you know what? At the end of the day, when they sit in front of me and I say, well, how much of this money belongs to you? They're looking at me as like, Mamadou, I'm crazy. No, I'm not crazy. It's a great question because we know that if you have $1.5 million in your TSP traditional, well, not all of that belongs to you. Right? We know that somebody else has stake in this. That money, some part of that is going to go into taxes. So if you base your planning or your retirement based on $1.5 million, then that's a problem. And do you know what the tax bill is going to be in the future? We don't know that, right? So most people, the mistake that they think like, oh, but the entire money in the TSP is tax-free. Because when you think about it, there are three types of money that goes into your TSP account. Okay, one, your paycheck, every pay period you put money in there. You also get the matching contribution from your agency, and you get the automatic 1% contribution. Oh, by the way, all of that money goes into your traditional TSP, and over time, the market also grows. So every single penny in that account is going to be subject to taxes when you start withdrawing money from it. So it's not tax-free. All what you're doing is you're postponing tax on that. So a TSP, most people think of it more like, okay, you're saving on taxes. You see, I have a problem with this word over here, saving, because that's why most people tend to put all of their money in the traditional TSP account. But I don't know about you. For me, though, when somebody says you're saving on something, I'm thinking like, oh, I'm saving on tax. I don't have to worry about that anymore, right? Well, no, you're not saving on tax, in my opinion. What you're doing is you are postponing or you're delaying paying that tax later on. You're basically saying that, well, I know what the tax rate is now, how much tax I'm supposed to pay now, but you know what? I'm not going to do that. I'm going to wait until later on and then pay tax on that. Well, to me, that could be very dangerous because you know what? We don't know what later on is going to look like. Now, if I know that later on taxes are going to go down significantly, if I know that for sure, then that's the right plan. But nobody knows that for sure. And you know what? The mistake that most federal government employees make, they assume that when they retire, they're going to be in a lower tax bracket. And because of this assumption, some people think that it's a good deal, put money into the traditional TSP. That way you can delay paying tax until later on. But the problem that they face is when they retire, their income, their salary goes away, but that salary is also replaced with what? They're going to get pension. At some point, they're going to start collecting their Social Security if they're first. And at some point, your TSP has done significantly well. Then at some point, you're going to have to start taking money out of that. And when you take money out of that, that's going to count as an income. So you end up having three sources of income coming to you in retirement. While you're working, you only have one. And by the way, if you add those three sources of income, that tend to put you even the same tax bracket right now or even a higher tax bracket. Oh, by the way, even if, let's say, for example, you're making $100,000 or $150,000 as an example, and in retirement, what you make is like $135,000. Some people equate that to say, oh, I make $135,000, which is less, then I'm in a lower tax bracket. No, what you have to figure out, $135,000 and $150,000 all falls in what? The same tax bracket. So this is the key that you have to think about, okay? So when you think about taxes, know that they're going to be guaranteed. At some point, you're going to have to pay it, but market returns are not, right? So we got to think about that before you put money into the traditional TSP. All right. So the next thing that we're going to talking about, like people come to me all the time, Mamadou, the TSP traditional versus the Roth, which one is better, right? Well, it all depends where you are and what's your take on when it comes to like taxes and also what your family situation is going to be, right? That's something that you have to decide on, right? But in essence, what that means is a traditional TSP over here. It basically means that now you're paying taxes. This is the Roth, sorry. This is the Roth TSP now. You're basically paying the taxes now, right? So money, you get paid, you pay the taxes, and then money goes into your Roth account, and then that money grows in there, and then later on, if you meet all the requirements, all of that becomes tax-free. So you're paying the taxes now. Some people like that idea of like, you know what, I'm going to take care of taxes. I just know the taxes now. Let me take it because I don't know what the tax is going to look like in the future. Well, if you put the money into the traditional over here, well, the traditional here, all what you're doing is you're postponing paying the taxes. Well, today it might sound like great because you know what? All what you do is postpone their taxes. But later on, you're going to have that hefty bill that you're going to have to pay. And you have to think about what's the emotional state that you're going to be in, and what's going to be your income level at that point, right? So before you decide on this, make sure you understand the difference. This is not about it's not about which one is better. It's about when you want to pay the taxes, okay? So it's very, very important out there. And I will tell you though, working with federal government employees, I will tell you though, the Roth TSP is the most underutilized account in your TSP. And I happen to believe that most people they don't know about it, or they're probably confused about it because some people tend to confuse the rules of TSP Roth versus the rules of Roth IRA, right? So we don't want that to happen. You want to make sure that you know these rules. That way you can make smart choices out there, okay? All right. So the other thing that we are going to talk about is the tax bracket trap, right? The tax bracket trap, right? So think about it. You know, the way the tax system works is like, you know, we have different tax brackets out there depending on where your income falls, right? So if you make too much money, obviously your tax bracket is going to be higher. So one of the things that we need to think about when it comes to like tax bracket, right? There's a trap out there. Well, if you make large withdrawals, especially from your TSP, that withdrawal is going to count as an income that can lead you into a higher tax bracket. And that will lead into what? More money that you're going to have to pay in taxes, right? So you got to think about that. Now, RMDs basically means that required minimum distribution. So when you put money into your traditional TSP account, and at some point you're going to have to the government is going to force you to take money out. When you take that money out, that's going to count as an income out there. Well, when you do that, well, that also can put you into a higher tax bracket out there. Now, big withdrawals out there basically means that a bigger tax bill, right? And if people will come to me and say, well, I don't have to take money out of my TSP, then I'll just leave it there. Well, you can do that, fine. But that's like kicking the can down the road. You kick the can down the road. At some point, you cannot kick it anymore. And that's the place that you don't want to be in because guess what? You don't have any leverage now. You don't have any control now. So the government basically got control over your money and they're gonna determine how much you have to take out. And guess what? You cannot miss that. If you miss that, that's going to be a big, big penalty out there. So make sure that you enjoy the time that you have control. You don't want to wait until you do not have control. The next thing that we're going to talk about here is why tax planning matters before retirement, right? You know, it's extremely, extremely important, okay? Because once you retire, your options basically they shrink, right? There's not many options available for you right now, okay? At that point, so tax strategy starts years before your separation from the federal government, right? So I'll give you an example. If you think about 59 and a half, as a federal government employee, most of you know that 59 and a half, right? So you think about it, you retire 59 and a half. Let's call it like in 6 months you're going to be 60, okay? So when you retire, there are different tax traps ahead of you. Okay? You retire 59 and a half, 6 months, you're going to be 60. Then you have 2 years before you can do a significant tax planning. Okay? Okay? 62 to make the significant tax planning. Because when you hit the 63, well, there's a tax trap right there. And that tax trap is going to be what? So if your income is high at age 63, that can affect your Medicare Part B premiums, because Medicare Part B premium, when you reach Medicare at age 65, the premium is going to be based on what? How much income you made at 63, because they always go back 2 years, right? So my point here is the time that you have to plan when you retire into Medicare is very, very, very limited. So if you wait, that's probably going to be a number one tax trap right there. That's why we want to basically start you on tax planning a while, way, way before you get to 59 and a half, right? So smart planning is not about avoiding taxes. It's about managing them wisely. Because when you manage taxes wisely, the better, right? There's this saying that there are two tax systems in America, right? There's one for the informed and one for the uninformed, and then they're both legal, right? So you want to make sure that you understand that, right? I hope that you can be on the side of this tax system whereby you're going to be informed. That way you can make smart choices out there, okay? Hi, thanks for watching. We know that your TSP could be your largest financial asset, but we also know that with proper withdrawal strategy, that can make a difference in terms of how much you keep and how much goes to taxes. So if you are interested in keeping more of your money and utilizing smart withdrawal strategies, call us at the office and subscribe to our channel for more federal insights.